Everyone, this is group 2. My name is Kyle, he, him, his.
Hi, Bob Hamilton, he, him, his.
Hi, my name's Haley Jimenez. I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Anna Pratt. I also use she, her, hers pronouns.
So to start off, we're just going to talk a little bit about the WIGS discussion article that talks about the state of WIGS today. And what the article really focused on is the two pillars that are really driving discussions in WIGS and the studies itself. The four scholarships are the Scholarship of Discovery, Integration, Application, and Teaching, with the Scholarship of Discovery focusing on new ways of knowing, as in you don't just take the information that's been always supplied for granted, and you're always investigating, asking new questions, connecting ideas, making sure that your perception of the world is as holistic as possible. The Scholarship of Integration also focuses on this holistic idea by being cross and interdisciplinarity in your work, making sure that you're connecting ideas and using resources from different departments to really understand feminism and the world around us. The Scholarship of Application focuses on making sure that you're always connecting the theoretical and historical approaches to everyday life and social structures that we live in today, which makes sure it bridges the gap between theory and practice in a way that is praxis. And finally, the Scholarship of Teaching is on feminist pedagogy, making sure that the discussions in the classrooms that students and professors are in are always open, making sure that everyone understands that it's more of a facilitation area and that everyone's views are very appreciated and valid, and making sure that everyone is open to speaking in those environments.
And I think that can kind of be tied back into the Dick Flores readings and even our talks like however many weeks ago about intersectionality, and that when you don't consider or you don't understand or you don't recognize these cross-cultural barriers, these interdisciplinary kind of talks and discussions, that you kind of wind up missing a mark. Like when they talk about reproductive rights in terms of Anglo women, in terms of Chicano women, that there's this perception, this cultural whatever that kind of blocks the feminist perception to kind of exist in both spaces, that it's hard for white women to kind of understand this idea that reproduction and pro-choice and those kinds of issues can exist in a space that isn't theirs. And I think that Anna has kind of a good idea about that in terms of some kind of current event stuff. So
yeah, when I was reading the works for this week, I was thinking about the recent articles about the forced hysterectomies at ICE facilities and how I think that these headlines have kind of gone away and become less popular, even though this is such a big issue, like a reproductive issue. And you would think that like the pro-choice movement and like these feminist movements would be like on top of this and like protesting these things, but because some of the WIGS teaching or like the programs in different schools encompass like the white feminism and not covering intersectionality, this isn't such a big headline in the United States, even though this is something that like our government agencies are actively participating in.
right, and that kind of even ties back into that scholarship of application idea in that report of like, if you're not making these connections, if you're not taking the time to look and analyze and think critically about not only what you've been told, but what you've lived, what you haven't lived, what you haven't been told, you're truly failing to recognize or expand upon or tackle the issues at hand.
Yeah, I think those are great examples of how women's studies has gone beyond just being about women. It's all about intersectionality now, and it's about oppression in many different places in society. And someone's at my driveway. So when you think about women's studies in general, and then the De Colores readings, they bring it to a fine point. So I focused a lot on the one about Chicano's politics. This ties to Anna's point at the border as well, right? We're talking about Mexican Americans here and their life in this United States and how it affected the women specifically. So after the meeting in 1989, now this is a 20-year kind of reunion of all the activists, and yet they are still very sexist and driving down on the women and making jokes about lesbians. And, you know, there was very little movement from a feminist perspective in that period of time. And has this continued? It's 30 years since now. Well, we just lost a president who spent 4 years talking about Mexicans as rapists on the day that he announced his candidacy, and then pretty much putting down women the entire rest of the time, including, you know, famous episodes that should have kept him from being elected. But things haven't changed there yet. Hopefully, at least there's 2 guys in this particular women's group, so we're coming on board.
For sure. And I think that that even can kind of be even related back again to that, the De Colores readings, where they talk about the idea of really struggling with the idea of liberation as a male kind of thought line, that in the like social scene that you've mentioned, it was a very almost like personally rooted like male struggle to be the conqueror, to be the conquered, to kind of fight with the idea of conquest in a way that's like not, it's not effective. It doesn't do anything other than just shift the fight. It doesn't tackle the issues. It just makes for a different kind of fight between white, Mexican, men, woman. It doesn't address an issue in a way that's productive, in a way that serves all people.
Yeah, yeah, being interdisciplinary and understanding people's different experiences with the patriarchy and different types of oppression is really important. Actually, chapter 22 of Passion and Politics in the De Colores reading brings up 2 books by Julia Alvarez and Demetria Martinez, in which the first one, In the Time of Butterflies, there's a lot of different stories that the book focuses on, but each woman understands and realizes their experience with the patriarchy and then becomes insurgent against that force, which reflects the title of the book, In the Time of Butterflies, because like a butterfly, they're going through this transformative process. And then in the other book, Mother Tongue, it focuses more on one story, but again, really stresses this idea of experiences, because the woman in the book had met a man, and at first she wanted to transform him and have him get over that trauma that he had experienced. But as time went on, and after he left, she recognizes the separation between their experiences. And later she actually becomes focused on change as well, focusing on, as the book said, low-key political activism. And I think it's really important that we continue to see those different experiences and how it's not just related to being a woman, but that each woman's experience will radicalize them in their own ways.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in one of the readings for this week, or one of the chapters, how they talked about how the Latina feminist movement kind of grew out of the Chicano liberation movement, because women started realizing that just because their like culture and country was fighting for that liberation didn't mean that they as women would be liberated to the extent as their male counterparts. And kind of going back to what Bob was saying about like the machismo and the male point of view, it's kind of these Chicano men had like kind of shamed their woman or female counterparts for being feminist because like feminism was seen as like white and like an Anglo practice, and they had just been fighting all this time in the liberation movement to be freed from these Anglo people. So I thought that was interesting how even though they were free in one way, they were kind of awakened and then shamed for being awakened to their inequality.
Well, hopefully we've awakened everyone here to a couple of fine points, and we hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks, team. It was a lot of fun.